Thank you all so much for joining us this evening for our first ever alumni panel. We are really excited to be joined here tonight by 7 of our rockstar alumna from 8 different semesters spanning 10 years of traveling school experiences. So thank you panelists for volunteering your time this evening to share stories and reflections and some words of wisdom for prospective students and their families. I'm also joined here tonight by my colleague Anj Thomas, who will introduce herself in just a moment. She is our academic dean and program director and holder of so much knowledge of the traveling school. She also taught for a few semesters. And my name is Maddie Johnson. I am the recruiting coordinator and marketing coordinator for the traveling school. I'm also a former faculty. I taught literature and global studies back in 2019. And I'm really excited to see one of my former students, Leah Jackson, in the panel this evening. So a lot of my worlds are colliding tonight, and it's exciting to see a spectrum of folks in our audience this evening as well. We've got prospective students and their parents and family members of our panelists and community members that are just supporters of all of these gals here tonight, and excited to hear their stories and distinct semester experiences. So without further ado, I'd love to let our celebrities this evening, our panelists, shine. But just for a quick evening overview, I know that we have some differing expectations and maybe even needs coming out of this panel this evening. So if you are a prospective student and you are here to learn more about the student experience of the traveling school, first I'd like to acknowledge the elephant perhaps in the room that a lot of these girls were on a South America or Southern Africa semester. And due to COVID, we are actually really excited that we've found a beautiful silver lining in pausing abroad travel and instead pivoting to a domestic year next year. So we're going to the Western US, the Rocky Mountains. We'll be exploring Montana and Utah and Colorado, Wyoming, and Arizona for a really beautiful semester that is based on the same exact foundation of what we have done really well for 35 semesters now. The only difference is that the locations will be a little bit different, and therefore some of the curriculum will focus on different content. But the magic of the traveling school is going to be the same. We're just really excited to have this little different adventure coming our way next year. So keep that in mind as you hear these stories, and our alumni are prepared to speak to some of the broader traveling school themes and trends that you too will see on a semester with us next year, regardless of the different continent that you will be on. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen so that you all can take a look at who we've got with us this evening. And before I jump into the panelists, Anj, do you want to just briefly introduce yourself and maybe speak a little bit to what your role might be for prospective students and their families across the application process?
Yeah, thanks, Maddie. I'm Anj Thomas, and I've been with the traveling school, for over 10 years now. I taught on 4 semesters, and then after that, I came into the office, and my role is all about programs. So I work with prospective students and teachers and families gearing up for the semester, and then supporting all 3 of those different parties throughout their semester experience. And then I love staying in touch with these alumni too. So I've gotten to see most of our panelists on semester, which is super fun. So in some ways I've taught almost all of them, but otherwise I saw some over Christmas break and everything else. So really excited to be here and just be able to support everybody in the audience with questions either during this webinar or during the admissions process and beyond. So I'm going to turn it on over. Back to you, Maddie.
And I'll just turn it over to Zoe. We'll have each of these panelists introduce themselves, maybe speak a little bit to where you are in the world right now, what semester you did with the traveling school, and if you've got a job, what's your job? If you're headed to college, where are you headed? Those little tidbits so that everyone can get oriented before we hear your stories. So Zoe, why don't you kick it off?
Okay. Hi, I'm Zoe Lynch, representing TTS 35 here. And along with my marvelous peers and teachers, I traveled to Ecuador and Peru, parts of Peru last spring semester. Now I'm currently a senior at Montclair Kimberly Academy in Montclair, New Jersey, and I'm going to be attending Stanford University for computer science in the fall.
Awesome. Thanks, Zoe. Zoe was one of our extra resilient traveling school students who had to move from Peru back to the States when the pandemic first became serious enough part of our reality. So thank you, Zoe, for being here tonight and sharing that part of your story. Leah, why don't we hear from you?
Hi, my name is Leah Jackson, and I was a member of the TTS 34. I traveled throughout Southern Africa, and right now I am a student, high schooler, 12th senior at Madison Heights High School. I live in Detroit, Michigan, and I'm participating in doing my application processes for schools in the UK, like college and stuff like that.
Thanks, Leah. Abby.
Hi, I'm Abby Alexander. I was on TTS 31 in Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia in spring of 2018. And I'm currently a freshman at George Washington University in DC, majoring in political science and minoring in Spanish, of course.
Thanks. Carly.
Hi, I'm Carly. I was on TTS 29 in South America, spring of 2017. I'm currently actually on a summer camp outside of Colorado Springs doing an in-person alternative college program, but I'm a freshman at Western Washington University studying environmental justice, also minoring in Spanish. And yeah.
Thanks, Carly. Sadie.
Hi, I'm Sadie. I am an alum from TTS 25, which was actually in Central America. We were the last semester in Central America in spring of 2015. I currently live in Chicago and I work at a civil rights legal aid organization.
Thanks. Katherine.
Hey there, I'm Katherine Johnson, and I participated in TTS 21, also in Central America. That was in spring 2013. And I am currently living in Redondo Beach, California, outside of Los Angeles. I studied at Clemson University for my undergrad. And currently I work at Pepperdine University as a program coordinator managing graduate business programs. And I am in a business program myself pursuing my MBA here at Pepperdine.
Great. And lastly, Mckenna.
Hey everyone, I'm Mckenna. I was on TTS 12 and TTS 16 in Southwestern and Southeastern Africa. I think that was 10 years ago, a while ago. I've been working in the costume department for TV, film, and theater for the past 8-ish years, and now I'm working on my applications for my master's in nursing. I'm in Oakland, California right now, but I've been living in New York for the past 3 years.
Awesome. Well, thank you, panelists, for those introductions and helping us get oriented to who we are lucky enough to have this evening. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that we can see faces a little bit more easily. Anj and I are going to alternate asking these ladies some questions. We aim to have 2 or 3 of them answering each one so that we can move through a variety of questions and get their voices as evenly shared as possible. We will then end with a Q&A session. So if you have any questions that you would like to ask them that we do not address, whether they're specific to their specific semesters or what they're up to since graduating high school, all of those questions are fair game, and we will try to get as many of them asked as possible. If you are joining us here tonight, curious about the application process and here with a little bit more of that admissions process lens, know that we will get to some of those specific questions as well, and we can hold on for a little bit longer after this session to field some of those more semester or application specific questions so that folks who are tuning in for non-application reasons can continue on with their evenings. All that said, if we don't get to all of your questions tonight, which we likely won't, info@travelingschool.com is a great way to reach us. We are also available for phone calls. If you head to our website, we've got an office phone that we'd be happy to chat with you on. And other than that, we're just here to support you. So thanks all for joining us. And without further ado, I am going to start with our first question. So, ladies, as you all know, and some folks in the audience likely know as well, a high school semester without traditional classes and teachers, weekends and extracurriculars are it's kind of a hard to imagine situation. So can you shed light on this reality and speak to a day in the life from your semester or a favorite memory that helps illustrate this reality for our audience members today?
I can speak to this one. So a day in the traveling school life is pretty much always different depending on where you are or what you're learning about, or even if there's some cool like opportunity that your teachers just hear about at the last minute and they want to go to it. So you can have like a full class day or just morning classes with an excursion or an adventure in the afternoon. Or you can do a full travel day where you're on a bus for a few hours. But I can speak to like generally what you can expect on a typical class day. So in my semester, we would usually wake up and have PE class first, and that usually included like a game of soccer or a yoga class or a cardio workout, pretty much anything that like gets you woken up, gets your body moving. And then we all had breakfast, and the teachers tell us what to expect for that day. They have a little schedule. So I might have had a morning of like global studies class and science, and then in the afternoon, literature and Spanish. And I didn't take math. So during that class, I could go out with my friends for like town time, which is time to explore and get work done. I don't know what that will look like exactly on this semester, but you just generally have free time when you don't have a class at that hour. And then we would have dinner, and after dinner, just like 2-ish hours of study hall, which is just time like dedicated to get your homework done and then go to bed. So that's like a typical class day. But again, with a domestic semester, you might have days that look different with just hiking or driving across the state or something. You pretty much never really know what you're going to get, which is actually kind of cool because you learn how to go with the flow and be ready for anything.
I can share one of my favorite school memories too. We were in Bolivia in the high desert above, just like high altitude, so very cold, and we were reading The Alchemist, and we had a late night book discussion after dinner because we'd been traveling for most of the day, and then the book is set in a desert, and so we were kind of learning about that while being in one, which was really special. And we went outside after our discussion and were stargazing and continuing to talk about the book, and it was just so cool being able to stand under the brightest stars I'd ever seen with my friends and my teacher, talking about a book that we were reading for school, and it just really struck me and has stuck with me as an example of what our schools can and should look like.
One of my favorite memories from my semester, which was TTS 34, where we were in Southern Africa, was a night swim on the Orange River that was actually held and hosted by Maddie. And it was just so spontaneous and so fun, and on some level kind of scary, but it was so fun because I'm actually really afraid of the water and stuff like that. And to be in the water like at night, just under the stars, was so beautiful. And on some level, I felt so safe, like with everyone I was with. And it was just so amazing because it was something so different. And I never thought that I would be doing something like that with a school. So.
Awesome. Thanks, ladies. Leah, you're totally bringing me back to that beautiful night in Namibia, and I wish I was there right now. I'll pass it over to Anj for our next question.
Yeah. All right. So a lot of our students comment on not necessarily changing during the semester, but evolving into a more authentic and confident and connected version of themselves. I've heard it referred to as the 2.0 version. Mckenna, can you maybe share, like, does this resonate with you, and how so, if it does?
Sure, thanks, Anj. I think that's a really important distinction between changing and evolving. I actually talked about this a lot with my mom over the years, that before I went on the traveling school, I always had this adventurous spirit inside of me, and I was always curious about the world around me, but I didn't necessarily have that confidence or safe space to explore those things. And when I went on the traveling school, all of a sudden I was in this community of amazing girls and women who were constantly supporting me and cheering me on in things that maybe I would have been scared to do before, like white water rafting or rock climbing, which I'd always wanted to do, but I wasn't confident enough necessarily before. So when I came home, I had a major confidence boost to go out and seek those opportunities out for myself, which is really special.
Awesome.
Oh, I'll just add really quickly too, in terms of leadership as well. That's another thing. I kind of always was, I don't know if you want to say a follower, but I really gained a lot of leadership skills on the traveling school. And I even remember on my second semester, one of my teachers coming up to me and saying, wow, I can see how much of a leader you've become. And that meant so much to me because she saw that transformation. I was still the same person, but I just gained all of these skills. So thanks.
Awesome, thanks. Anybody else want to comment on that one?
I can add on a little bit. I really agree with what Mckenna was saying, that the traveling school seemed to have this uncanny ability to find the little things that I was really excited about and had some interest in, and just pull them up to the surface and expand on them so much more. And so I feel like I got a lot more experience with leadership as well, and things like social justice and accessibility to the outdoors, which today I'm really passionate about and I'm interested in studying, were things that I got to focus on more and explore. And I think that the traveling school really helped me explore how many possibilities the world holds and how many things there are to do, and that I can do them, which was really cool.
Very cool. I love hearing about that one because I was one of Mckenna's teachers way back when, and I also spent some time with Carly when I was visiting. So just seeing, and I could see their spark change throughout the semester. So it's fun to hear them reflect on it. Maddie, back over to you.
Thanks, Anj. Yeah, so as many of you know, our bread and butter at the traveling school is bringing curriculum to life through the places and people that we're traveling through and interacting with. So can some of you speak to a favorite lesson or a lesson that just really stuck with you from class? How was it taught, and why did the way that it was taught matter to you?
So I can speak to this question. One thing that has always stuck with me was we had a lesson where we did what's called a hunger banquet, and like, I'm trying to remember who said it when they were describing a day at TTS, you never know what's going to happen really. And so this was a lesson that, like, we weren't even having class. I mean, that's the beauty of TTS, is you're always on, everything is a learning opportunity. But so it was just during lunch, and the teachers had us, we were staying at a hostel, they had us come into the common area, and they had two people sit down at a table, and then one person sit, I think, I don't know, a smaller group of people sitting on the ground, and then most of us were sitting in a group together. And the people at the table, they served them just excessive amounts of food, and really good food, and so much that the people sitting at the table couldn't even eat it. And then there was a smaller group of people that I think got like some rice and beans, and then the majority of us sitting on the floor had to just share a bowl of rice amongst all of us. And we had that visual representation of how we were divided out. The majority of us were, sitting on the ground sharing a bowl of rice. Meanwhile, there was only 2 people sitting at this table with excessive amounts of food that they couldn't eat. And we were all really confused about what was happening at first. And then we realized, oh, this is a lesson. And it was like supposed to give us a visual representation of global wealth inequality. And I think that's just something that really stuck with me, because it was something that we weren't even in class, but it was just thrown in there, and it really kind of took some of the principles that we had been learning and made it very interactive and demonstrated it to us in a way that was very real.
Thanks, Sadie. Anyone else have some thoughts on a lesson that stuck with them, how it was taught, why it mattered?
I can kind of chime in on a lesson. Honestly, it wasn't one specific lesson. I think it was just the semester in general. But for me, it was definitely the lesson of just like a classroom doesn't have to be a desk and a bunch of other desks and we're all sitting in a row and with pen and paper. It can be outside under the sky or under a tree because it's too sunny, or on the beach listening to the water and the waves crash, or in a room. So to me, it was just learning that the classroom doesn't have to be what is really taught to us since we're kids growing up. Like, it doesn't have to be what you think it is. It can honestly be anything. And for me, that lesson was really important for me, and it stuck with me because now sitting in the house with the pandemic, learning from my iPad and in front of the same desk every day, it's kind of hard, but it just taught me to appreciate learning that lesson from TTS and learning that, this doesn't have to be my classroom and I can choose to make the world my classroom. So I think that the biggest lesson, or one of my favorite lessons, is just learning that anything can be a classroom and you can learn anything anywhere from the world.
And I can also add on to this question. I would have to say that the lesson that stuck with me most, hands down, would have to be an assignment in Latin American history that we received during our homestays in Agualongo. The assignment essentially asked us to kind of conduct this interview with our homestay families, asking about things ranging from like their favorite cultural celebrations to like, the horrors of the hacienda system. Then after that, we had to reflect on their responses like in a written paper. And I thought my interview would yield mostly like fun and lighthearted responses, as that was the nature of the family I was staying with. We played Uno all night, laughed about like my not so good Spanish accent, and we're similar in so many ways. I would have never believed that they had experienced years of abuse under their employers and the government. And like, don't get me wrong, I knew of the history of indigenous populations in South America and their exploitation prior to this assignment. However, this interview kind of opened my eyes to something much more important than their struggles, like their feats. My host family told me stories of how they relied on and pushed each other and fellow community members when times got rough. They told me how it took an whole entire community to, raise a child and like celebrate a success. And as my host family told me more and more stories about the importance of community, I kind of saw myself getting rather jealous. And when I asked myself why, I realized that it was because I never had something like that, like something like a sense of community that kind of went beyond blood and beyond the individual. And it was beautiful. So, when I look back at this project and assignment, which I don't even think was supposed to go that deep as I took it, I'm extremely grateful. It taught me so much about my host family and their lives, and also my life and myself. So, yeah.
Thank you, Zoe. I think that is a great transition to Anja's next question about this idea of redefining community and learning more about it. Anj, over to you.
Yeah. All right, so the traveling school redefines community by redefining student and teacher relationships, but also redefining how our students relate to each other and themselves. Wondering if a couple of you can speak specifically to how your teachers were different, your traveling school teachers were different from your teachers back home. And then maybe if somebody more broadly can speak to how the traveling school redefined community for you.
I can start on this one. My traveling school teachers have been some of the most influential people in my life. To this day, I still keep in contact with a couple of them and continue to really look up to them as people who I want to be more like. And I think I've thought about it a lot, and I think it really boils down to the way that they balance like compassion and grace with strength and leadership. And I think those qualities, especially in women, and seeing them especially as a young woman, are so important. And I think in any career, that balance is one of the most important things, and something I continue to strive to every day. And I don't think it would have been the same if I hadn't had those role models to look up to.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's such a unique, I'll add that it's such a unique dynamic that you don't really get with any other person in your life. They're not like the person that you see for an hour in a classroom every day. It's like someone who lives with you and mentors you and goes through really hard things with you in addition to teaching you. So I think that kind of dynamic allows the students to really learn so much more from them than they ever would at home. Um, and something, related to the strength that Carla talked about, something that I didn't realize on my semester was like, I I was so like, when there were hard moments, I was like, oh, I'm sick. This is heavy. This sucks, whatever. Like, whenever there were hard moments, like, and the teachers were going through all those moments too. They also had to be physically and mentally responsible for 15 girls, which is like insane. And I certainly could not have done it. So I think they are truly some of the strongest women I've ever met, in addition to being like excellent educators.
I definitely agree with everything that was said about TTS teachers. In terms of how TTS redefined community for me, I think going back to that question about how we evolve during TTS and become, we come into ourselves. The relationship that I have with the other students on my semester, I would say every single one of them is one of my closest friends to this day. But just knowing that I have a community of people who were there and saw me and supported me during that process, and when I really think I was my best, and knowing that, whatever I'm going through, I have that group of people that I can go back to that remind me of my values and remind me of who I am when I'm at my best. I think that's been really important and redefined community for me in that way. And also kind of going back to what Zoe said when she was talking about, the dynamics she observed with her host family and how she didn't really have that sense of community. I do often feel that way and have felt that way, that, I don't have a community like that. But my TTS teacher, Sarah, I was talking to her a couple months ago, and she told me that, community doesn't have to be just people that you know or people that you have in your life or people you're interacting with all the time. Community can be, okay, I align myself with the beliefs and values of this community or this group of people or this movement. And I think TTS really showed me that. And it's something that I come back to in times when I feel like disconnected from myself or disconnected from community.
I love hearing about all that. And what I like, Sadie was on semester, gosh, it's about 7 years ago or so, and that she was just talking to one of her teachers the other month, and not in a surface level conversation, but diving back into those meaningful moments and kind of seeking to support and mentor each other as adults. So Sadie was probably offering Sarah advice, but also could look to her on some of those challenges many years after. And I don't even know if they've seen each other in person since then, but they still hold this connection that's all about based around the community that they developed over 15 months. So thank you, ladies.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for those beautiful answers and for that additional energy. I think after my 2 semesters teaching, I can also speak to how powerful those relationships are with your students. I was able to just see one of my students in Vermont a couple weeks ago over the holidays and catch up with her new career path ideas and inspiration for college essays, and being able to edit her college essay with her at a coffee shop. So all of those things are just pieces of the relationship that you really can't find in traditional schools. And I feel really grateful to have gotten so much of my teaching experience from these more non-traditional high school settings where you are constantly redefining your relationship to your students. You know, you're belaying them up the rock walls and then you're grading their alchemist essays. So with that juxtaposition there, I know intimately, I know all of you know intimately that every day on semester holds a lot. They're not always easy. You might be going from the rock wall to a hard night of paper writing or studying for an exam. Your days are consistently jam-packed and your free time and personal space is certainly more limited. Your classes are also rigorous and your typical support systems are really far away. So I would love to hear how some of you coped with some of these challenges while you were on semester, and what lessons did you take away from this really important component?
I can start with that one. So one of the tangible things I started doing on my first semester at the traveling school was journaling. And so I had never really journaled before, but I knew I wanted to keep a record of all of these experiences that I was having so I could look back in the future. But the thing I found was every night when I journaled, it was a safe space where I could talk about how I was feeling, if I was sad, my fears, the excitements of that day. And I continued doing that through both of my semesters, but I've actually continued doing that up until this day. I journal every night before I go to bed, and it's just a tangible way for me to get those feelings out on paper. So that's one of the ways I coped. The other great thing on the traveling school is that each student is assigned to a mentor, one of their teachers. And so I really took advantage of those moments where I could have one-on-ones with that teacher to talk about how I was feeling, what I was experiencing. And actually on my first semester, one of my teachers from back home had passed away who I was really close with. And my advisor, my mentor really helped me process those grieving feelings. And I remember she woke up with me one morning really early, and we went out to the ocean and lit candles for a little memorial service, which was happening at the same time back home for my teacher. So just the way that your teachers and your fellow TTS students go above and beyond to make you feel comfortable when you're away from home. I mean, we're all feeling those same feelings. And so just really reaching out and realizing that everybody wants to be there for you.
Yeah, I have a lot of those same feelings, Mckenna. I think feelings is a big word. You know, with the traveling school, there's so many logistics and things to fit in within the day, and it's all new, and the people are new, and you're just in this other world apart from your life at home. And so that brings up a lot of feelings, like life at home doesn't stop, and you can hear news or whatnot. And so I would also say journaling and taking that time to feel all your feelings and to process them through journaling is really helpful. And then also just like logistically, the traveling school can be, you're always on the move, right? And so for me, in terms of like maintaining my personal space and kind of keeping my ducks in a row, I really embraced my packing systems. And if you go on a traveling school semester, like you're gonna get familiar with packing systems, I think, very quickly. And so, you know, keeping things organized, and whether you have half of a tent to stay in that you're sharing with someone else, or if you're in a hostel, I think kind of keeping organized, maintaining your own space is really helpful to kind of regulate your day and your feelings and emotions as well, I would say. And then I think just maintaining a level of curiosity in your coursework, you know, as you're studying, but also curiosity in the people around you and engaging in these new friendships. You know, you can really lean on them. We talked about our relationships with our teachers, leaning on them during those harder days and kind of staying curious is really helpful as well.
Awesome. I love it. We're going to keep on moving through because now I'm curious about how the traveling school prepared you to think about what you consume with a critical eye and an open mind. So knowing that now more than ever, we're demanded to consume the world exactly like that with a critical eye and an open mind, how did traveling school help you do this in your daily life?
So one of the first concepts that was introduced to us during my traveling school semester was a concept, I hope I'm remembering it correctly, by an anthropologist named Dr. Paul Farmer called, he came up with this idea of reading the world, which is, I think he came up with it when he was in Haiti and there was some dam project that was supposed to be, you know, great for development, but it had displaced an entire community of people. And reading the world is about looking at something and not just accepting it on its surface and digging deeper and thinking about what does it actually mean beyond face value. And we were taught to, you know, read the world, so to speak, in every situation we were in and every concept we were introduced to, not just accept things as they appeared. And I think that's been incredibly useful skill, not just in, you know, your studies, but I mean, just for life, being able to look at things critically and not just accept them as they are.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That was a great way to put it. I think that one of the best things that you can learn on traveling school is how to think critically. And that skill is just absolutely essential to be an informed citizen. Um, Prior to the semester, I didn't even realize how my worldview was so skewed by like where I lived and what I looked like and even the clothes that I wore. And I also didn't understand how that the information that I had been receiving in school and in life was so one-sided, and I had never taken the time to truly understand other viewpoints, viewpoints that didn't necessarily involve me directly. And I think that opportunity will only be more incredible in the domestic semester, sort of rethinking what we've always been taught in school in US history classes, specifically with Indigenous people who lived here before us. So I think critical thinking skills are just a huge takeaway from the semester, especially now with what's going on in this country. And it's just going to be very valuable to be able to question literally everything and come to your own conclusions.
Wow, where do I even begin on this one? Well, first, I think I would like to say that I matured a lot throughout semester and did and saw things that I would never in a million years, like ever, thought I would previously. You know, whether it be like white river rafting, canyoneering, climbing up like a super slippery mountain, trekking for days, going surfing, or even like getting stuck in Peru in quarantine under military surveillance. Geez, like my question is like, how did TTS not prepare me to have an open mind? You know, I tried so many new things. But like if I had to think of like a specific thing that kind of struck me and forced me to see through like a more global lens, it would definitely have to be the Mama Negra, which translates to Black Mother in English. So, you know, I'll set the scene because it's like a story. So my classmates and I were watching a parade one day in Ecuador, and the floats were beautiful, the dances were magnificent, and the environment was booming. All of a sudden, I see this giant black figurine head with large red with large red lips and like bulging eyes. And I then proceeded to see both Ecuadorian women and men dancing in the streets with these like amazing dresses, but wearing blackface. So I was in shock. See, I'm half Ecuadorian and half Black. So like talk about a trigger for like an identity crisis. So for the rest of the day, I was silent. My mood was down. For the first time in the entire trip, I was like, no, 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 no. This is too much and I want to go home. See, that wasn't until though, my teacher, Danica, saw that I was hurt and kind of took me on a one-on-one that same night for a really good banana milkshake. And we were kind of like talking through like what I was going through and how I was feeling. And then I remember her saying something along the lines of, well, maybe it's not exactly what it seems. And at the moment I was like, yeah, sure, okay. But then Allie, my other teacher, would offer me resources to kind of do more research on La Mama Negra. And it turns out Mama Negra is a symbol for unity, like between people. And the celebration is held in honor of, like the figure that they were like portraying. So sure, the execution looked to be rather offensive, but they weren't making fun of people like me, like Afro descendants. Rather, they were just kind of celebrating the contributions of African slaves brought over to Ecuador. So kind of through this situation, I kind of learned to be not so like turned off to things in new environments. And through TTS, I kind of learned that it's always important to come to places with an open mind and to always do my research. So definitely that was a lesson I learned, and like it's gonna stick with me forever because I cannot get that image out of my head.
So you're making me learn tonight. I didn't know that story about Mama Negra and all that. So it's, there's always more to learn. And just like you said, it's not what you might first perceive, but there's probably more layers. And it doesn't make it any easier, but hopefully we can start to peel those back and at least question them and gain a little bit more understanding. So yes, thank you ladies for sharing on that subject.
I am curious how your traveling school semesters informed or dictated where you are today and your greater life paths. Anyone want to tackle that one?
I will tackle that one, Maddie. I would say doing a TTS semester opened my eyes to this thing called experiential education, which I thought was so cool that kind of like Leah has spoken to, your classroom can be anywhere and you can learn through so many different types of activities. I liked that it was globally oriented and oriented towards just experiencing different places and cultures in general. And so that definitely informed my career path. So in college, I worked within my university's Office of International Student Services to kind of help promote that at my university and serve that student population. And then after I finished my undergrad, I've worked at an education research foundation nonprofit geared towards international education. And then now working at Pepperdine University, the programs that I manage and run have a lot of global components and are globally oriented. So it's kind of informed where I choose to work, where I spend my time and things like that. And then separately, I would say outdoor skills. This was the time in my life where I first really learned about, I guess, outdoor recreation. I got out of my comfort zone and learning all of these different skills. And so things like camping, surfing, rafting, backpacking. And now I live in Southern California and I do these things all the time. And so it's definitely kind of jump-started that part of my life. And yeah, I don't know if I would be doing the things I'm enjoying today without that foundation in the traveling school.
Thanks
I'll
so much.
also jump in here. So like I mentioned in the beginning, I've been working in theater, film, and TV in the costume department for the past 8 years. And I think going back to kind of one of the beginning questions, it was really about the boost in confidence that this was something I was interested in and I could succeed in this area, even though it might seem difficult or somebody said that, this isn't the career path for you. But I knew that this was something I was passionate about and had that confidence to pursue it. It's also being in a freelance career is you have to have a lot of flexibility. And I definitely learned that through the traveling school as well. Always in a different location, working with all different types of personalities and people from different backgrounds. And, you know, even when you're working with people who it might be difficult to work with, like really appreciating and where they're coming from and trying to learn about them and their ideas instead of getting frustrated. And then on the other side of that, I'm in the midst of applying to nursing school to get my master's in nursing. And I've been kind of thinking about a career change for a while. And the reason I actually came upon this was one of my really good friends, Shannon, from my traveling school semester, was in nursing school. And I met up with her in New York, and she was talking about her experiences. And I thought, wow, this sounds like something I would be really good at and that I really want to explore. So really, in addition to all the skills I learned through the traveling school, these connections and friendships I've built have led me to this totally new career path.
So exciting, Mckenna, and thanks for sharing that. I think even on both of my semesters, I remember my own wheels turning about how inspired my students were to pursue different career paths and having these little light bulbs turn on about new ideas and industries that they wanted to go into. And then I was like, man, I am starting to feel more inspired than ever to tackle, you know, women's health and the idea of service in different countries and education at large and all of these things. So thanks for sharing those pieces. Anyone else want to speak to that before moving on to another question? All right, over to you, Anj.
All right. We're wrapping up towards the end of our formal questions. So everybody listening, getting ready to answer or ask your questions. So I'm wondering if anybody wants to share advice that you have for a prospective student. I also see some past parents on the phone, and so if you want to chime in after these girls about advice for families as well. So yeah, advice as people are thinking about that admissions deadline creeping on in.
I can answer this one to start off. I would say ask as many questions as you have, ask them all. A semester school is not like a normal traditional form of education. And so it's normal for you to have a lot of questions about what this might look like for you. And so take advantage of the traveling school staff members. I know there's plenty of alumni who are also available. I'm sure many of us on this panel would be open to connecting with you if you have questions. So I think, you know, all questions are good questions, and take advantage of the staff and alumni available. And then secondly, I would say in terms of students and their families, just getting on the same page of how you would achieve this financially is a really good thing to do, whether it's through scholarships or fundraising. If that's going to be, you know, a challenge, or you know, it is an investment. And so I would say just getting on the same page with your parents and with your daughter if they're interested in pursuing this. And yeah, just lean into the experience. It's really unique and untraditional. So it's a really great opportunity to just lean into as a family. And I was thinking of the benefits of this being a domestic semester. And one of the biggest benefits that I think you could kind of get from being able to have access to kind of revisit these places that these girls are going to go to later as a family. For my semester, it was in Central America. So I was thinking like, well, man, it would be really cool to like get back there one day, show my parents, show my husband, like where I went, but that's way more attainable, I think, with this domestic trip. So I think that's something to kind of look forward to as a family.
I have some advice. Also just quickly, hi, my name is Kate. I was on TTS 35 with Zoe, stuck in Peru crew. My advice would be to just go for it, because TTS is an experience that's going to open your eyes, and it is going to be uncomfortable, but that's part of the learning journey. So just go for it. And there is so much that you can learn. And like everybody else was saying, you take home such amazing memories that will affect you for like the rest of your life. And you just learn so many cool things and become a more conscious person, like moving through the world, I think. So that would be my advice, because it is going to be scary, but you can like face those feelings and still go for it and have a great time. And like Katherine was saying, the domestic semester sounds really cool, because definitely you can like revisit those places. And I think even if people are from there, that would be so cool to get to know like the land you live on in a different way. So sounds very inspiring. Also, thank you guys for being here, and thank you all the panelists for your amazing answers.
Kind of just like picking up off of what Kate was saying. My biggest piece of advice would be to like never limit yourself, and not even just speaking on like on the semester, but just like in life in general, because I feel like there's so many big fears with like studying abroad and leaving your family for 4 months, and there's so many social fears and experiencing fears. And there's so many situations where at times I was a really big social butterfly, but then there were some situations where like meeting the locals, I didn't ask as many questions as I should have or experience as much as I should have because I was a little scared. So I limited myself, and I didn't get those experiences that some of the other girls may have had because they didn't limit themselves. So one of my biggest pieces of advice would be not limiting yourselves. And although it's, you know, a little bit out of your comfort zone and it may seem scary, just push yourself a little bit, and I promise it'll be worth it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what everyone else has been saying. For me, hands down, I think you have to be ready to work. I went to TTS junior year, and that's a year that was like super important when it comes to college. Like it is super important when it comes to college. And my parents actually were initially like, no, you cannot go. That was like the main concern. They thought the trip would somehow like sabotage my chances for college or future success. But like I'm like fairly stubborn, and I was able to persuade them into like, giving me this chance, but I had to make sure that I made it happen before I went. My best advice for you, if you're considering going away, is to try to get most of your work done before you go, especially if you're a junior. I had to self-study classes, take my subject tests and my ACT kind of sophomore and junior year, and first semester junior year, so I could get right back on track when I got back from semester. Like I could not imagine having to come back from semester and like to do all this stuff, and I just feel like it would be super stressful. So definitely getting stuff done before then would be like super good. And also, like I also recommend you coordinate with your teachers, counselors, and school advisors, and definitely like find ways to check off all your class and credit requirements, because you don't want to come back to like a whole lot of work. But I have to say, all this like work and coordination was totally worth it. It was totally worth it. And as for TTS, I think it might be good if you come up with a plan as to how you'll approach your work. Time goes really fast, so you really have to focus on your time management and organization skills. Before TTS, I was pretty much an organizational mess. My school bag was always filled with loose leaf papers, and I always waited to do assignments until like the night before, which was not good. But I had a feeling that would not fly in TTS, and I was right about that. So for months leading up to the program, I kind of practiced like improving my rather lacking organizational skills, and it ended up helping me a lot. But definitely, it just makes your transition into the traveling school way easier if you like kind of get a lot of your work done and you really prepare for like what's to come, because it's really fast paced and like it's a completely different learning style. So like if your organization's on point, then you should be fine.
I'll just quickly add on to that as well. I went as a first semester sophomore and a first semester senior, and I was also in the International Baccalaureate program. But again, like you said, like Zoe said, if you're organized and you kind of have your ducks in a row, it is totally doable, and you can do it. Just make sure you're coordinating with the right people ahead of time. I did have a little bit of extra work when I came back my senior year, but I was so excited that I had been on this experience that it didn't even matter, because I had all the skills to really dive into the work and get it done. So I wouldn't worry about, again, and also like not limiting yourself. Just go for it, get connected with the right people, and you can totally make it happen.
I also want to just really quick kind of increase the stoke for the domestic semester. I've spent a lot of time recreating in a lot of different ways on the lands that you guys are going to be traveling through, whether it's like climbing or skiing or rafting. And those are some of my favorite memories in general. And I cannot imagine traveling through them and recreating in that way with a lens that TTS brings. I think it's so important to enter the outdoors with that sense of land stewardship and responsibility and awareness of the history of the lands you're on. And I've gotten a little bit of that, but it's mostly self-taught. And I know that with the women who lead these trips, it would just be phenomenal. So I'm super excited for you guys if you take the leap.
Thanks all. Thanks, Carly, especially for raising that domestic stoke. I too am hearing all these stories and only imagining them happening, you know, at the foothills of the Tetons instead. And I think stoke is meant there for this upcoming semester.
Hey, Maddie, this is Wendy Moniz. I am the parent of Sophie Moniz, who is Abby's classmate from TTS 31. So if I could just add a parent perspective on that real quickly, that I would encourage the girls that are considering this to not think about all of those things they might miss out in their traditional school year. I know that a lot of Sophie's friends, when she talked to them about it, was trying to recruit other girls. Oh, but I'll miss out on dances. I'm going to miss out on sports. I'm going to miss out on all of these activities or events. And think more about all the things you're going to gain. And I think a lot of the girls on the panel have been very, eloquent in talking about all those things they have experienced and learned and gained. So don't think about those things you're going to miss out on, but those things you're going to gain from the experience, because it's 100% worth it. I know my daughter absolutely loved her semester, and yeah, so that's my advice.
Thanks so much, Wendy. And that's what Anj is here to do as well. She is around to make that process as smooth as possible, help coordinate with your school, and make those credit transfer forms happen easily. So definitely good things to keep on in your mind. And we have seen it all. Anj has seen it all. So yeah. Sadie, did you have your hand up or did you want to say something?
Oh yeah, it's not really related, but just something that I think prospective students should keep in mind. I know when I told people about this program when I was going to do it, I got some kind of weird comments about the fact that it was an all-girls program. Like people would say things like, oh, there's going to be so much drama, or like, oh, like, why no guys? And honestly, for me, that was the most amazing part of the program, was being in an environment with all girls and all women teachers. I think that's something that makes TTS super unique and allows it to function the way it does. I think the way that TTS allows teenage girls to develop confidence and leadership skills is just something that could not be accomplished in a co-ed program. And so if you had any hesitancies about that, I would say I see it really as one of the best parts of TTS. It's not something to be intimidated by, and you're going to get all types of strange comments from people, but that's okay.
Well, I'm gonna ask one question that I just got in that I think is relevant, and I'm curious of all of your answers. We are very aware that there's a lot of semester schools that exist these days, and they all kind of have these really special magical niches. We are curious why you chose the traveling school, maybe building off of that all girls environment, but also noticing our differences is our size. We are one of the smallest semester schools at just 16 students and 4 teachers. And we're also the only school without that traditional campus. We don't have boundaries limited by the location of our campus and where our classes are. So if anyone can speak to why TTS, I would love to hear your answers.
I'll start with that. kind of going off what you just mentioned, the size of TTS, when the first reason I found out about it, somebody came into my classroom who had done the traveling school and presented about it. And I went home that evening and said to my parents, like, I have to go on this semester. I really it's perfect for me. And I think the small size is what makes it so special and important, is that you get that one-on-one time with people. You get to have those intimate, small conversations and feel really safe in all of your classes and environments that you're in. And the fact that you get to go everywhere, and that your classroom might be out in the desert or in a cave after you've done a day of backpacking. I mean, those are experiences that I didn't see in any other semesters I had researched. So I think just the uniqueness of being able to experience so many different locations within one program was really special.
I can add on to that. Well, I guess first off, I've been wanting to go on a semester kind of my entire high school career. I feel like the way I learn best is kind of through hands-on, interactive methods, rather than the typical classroom. There's a presentation, and then you're just kind of isolated, and all you're doing is kind of memorizing. Um, and when I kind of brought this idea to my parents, they were like, okay, no boys. So that, that kind of crossed out, a lot of semester schools. So I was like, okay, well, that means I have to find one. And I'm like, you know what? Boys aren't even necessary, the crusty. And then my mom got an email from one of her friends, and her friend somehow was talking about TTS, but it wasn't a recommendation. It was she just brought it up casually. And then my mom heard it, and then she looked it up because she was curious. And then she sent it to me, and then I saw it, and I was like, so first of all, I didn't even believe that it existed. I thought it was I don't know if I'm making any sense, but I was just it was almost too perfect. And the fact that it was in South America, it just leveled the entire, just it was just amazing. So I was like, okay, this is awesome. And definitely the no tech aspect, because I'm kind of really reliant on technology for a lot of my work I do for school. So it was kind of a whole brand new way to challenge myself. And it was just amazing. And just the different immersive aspects of it, kind of doing the homestays, meeting all these people. And then when I got there, it was even greater than what I previously thought it would be, which was already great. So it was just an amazing experience. And yes, I don't know if I answered the question, but yeah.
Great, Zoe, thank you. Anyone else want to speak to their decision in choosing a traveling school?
Part of it for me was also the experiential aspect, but I mean, not just the experiential education, but also all the outdoor activities. I feel like that's just a very unique program that I don't really know of many other semester schools that function in this way, where it's experiential, but in a variety of different environments. So everywhere you go, you're completely immersed and learning from the people and things and environment around you. And I don't know of really another semester program that's quite like that.
It looks like you have a question that just came in that sounds exciting and very useful for any prospective students and families out there.
Yeah. Yes, we had a question come in about the fundraising aspect, and wondering if any of you are comfortable talking about raising money, what worked, what didn't, and maybe you even know stories from your semester. And I will say that we know that talking about the finances is hard, and it's scary to be that vulnerable. Our staff is really small so that we can work with you one-on-one on this and ask more about your financial situation behind the scenes. But our goal is to help any motivated young woman get here, and it might take a year to do that, but we're here to help and talk about that individually. We also have things on the website, so I'm just going to put that out there that we can follow up more in detail. But it does, if anybody is comfortable, you want to share how you made it to the semester?
I can share.
Yeah.
So for me, fundraising was really important to have access to this semester. And so one of the things that worked for me was writing fundraising letters to people in my community, whether it be family, friends, just different people I knew from different organizations I was a part of, through my church that I attended, things like that, where you write a letter kind of outlining what is your goal, you know, what are the benefits of what you're trying to do on this semester, and asking for help with that. And you can enclose a small envelope with a stamp already on it, so that if people want to write you a check, I know Venmo is a little more popular these days. When I was fundraising, we were writing checks, so maybe that's not so much of an issue, but that's a really good way to fundraise. What else? I know things like GoFundMe can be helpful, or if you want to sell like a product, if you have a craft, or if you have kind of a hobby and you can you know, sell things, or just work, you know, like get a part-time job and save in that way. So I think there's lots of different things that you can do, especially if you're looking ahead to maybe next year, or you know, if you're looking at the fall. So I think there's definitely time for that, and it's definitely doable. I know that worked for me, and I'm sure it's worked for a lot of other people in terms of fundraising.
I can also add on a little bit. I found that the other thing that I wanted a little bit of support with was the gear. There's a lot of kind of like specific things that I didn't have that I wanted to bring along with me. And so I just sent a lot of emails to a lot of companies, kind of explaining what I wanted to do, explaining why I liked their product, their company. And I ended up getting like a free pair of sunglasses and a really cheap pair of sandals. And some other things. And it was really awesome. And so the worst they can say is no. So I would just recommend asking as many people as you're interested in asking.
Kind of just going off of what Carly said, it's kind of just like putting yourself out there. And I know that can be like a little hard and seem a little scary and like kind of intimidating to be like, oh, well, can you support me in getting to Africa, or, you know, to Ecuador and stuff like that. But the worst, like she said, the worst they can say is no. And I mean, no one is really gonna say no. They may, but what are the chances? And kind of with the elevator speech which is on the website, that's intimidating too. I'm like, well, how am I going to get everything I need to talk about into a couple of seconds? And that's kind of scary, but it's basically, for me, the easiest was pinpointing, okay, why am I going here? What do I want to gain from it? And the benefits to me and what I'm going to bring back to my community. And social media was my main platform. So I created a Facebook page and an Instagram page of LMP Worldwide. And I sat there and took about 100 videos until I got the perfect one of my elevator speech. And then we posted it, promoted it, and it got a lot of revenue, and I got a lot of donations and stuff like that. So it's just about like letting go the fear of, well, I don't really want to ask for money. And it's like, do you want to go where you want to go? It's just kind of deciding what's more important.
Yeah, it's so true. It's that first step in vulnerability, and it's a big one. And we've tried to hear from, you know, just from years of experience and helping students get here and families about what does work and what doesn't work. And yeah, I think, you know, some people have sold cards because they're amazing artists. And Leah did a phenomenal job on her social media post, and, you know, just getting the word and having that ripple effect of other people sharing and things like that. And I love Carly's idea of just writing to some companies with specific asks, a backpack, shoes, something like that. And yeah, so there's a plethora of ideas, and we're excited that you are thinking about it, and we're here to help you with it along the way. Yeah. Maddie, do you have any other questions?
One that I like that is here is, how did it feel to be unplugged from technology on your semester? For context, for those of you in the audience who are unfamiliar with our practices on semester, students get an MP3 player that they can upload before semester. And other than that, they are unplugged from their cell phones. They don't have computers. They're handwriting all of their assignments. I'm sure some of you have memories of cramped hands. But the unplugged nature of our semester definitely is a part of its magic. And especially after a year like this one, I'm curious if any of you alumna have perspectives on why that mattered and why it might be particularly important coming out of a Zoom heavy year.
I would just say, if I could do this again and spend 3 months without the internet, like I totally would right now. I've been wanting that for myself. I'm sure I see a lot of nodding heads with like the Zoom and the online learning and all of that. I think it's important to kind of establish the group of girls and teachers, and kind of establish your community, and you're kind of insulated from the outside world in a way which is really conducive to this type of transformation and learning that we've been talking about tonight. So I would say it's extremely beneficial, just for the overall experience, also for learning and kind of getting that transformative kind of circumstance, I guess I would say, transforming within your group that you're in, and with your curriculum and with the places that you are. But yes, I would say it's a very good thing. I remember I would Skype home every 2 weeks. So we would set up Skype calls with my family. So you're not totally out of touch, and you can still have periodic engagement with people and your family. So that's really helpful. Yeah, those are my thoughts.
I can kind of chime in on that as well. I think the biggest like positive to being so unplugged was forgetting what the beauty standard. So to me, social media and TV shows kind of influence like, oh, well, this is what beauty is. And that can completely sometimes ruin someone's self-esteem. And to be so unplugged and away from all of those European style Western beauty norms, and to just fall into my own beauty and gain my own confidence and my own position. And I am beautiful, and I'm beautiful with no hair, with a lot of hair, with no mascara, no eyebrows or anything. So I think that was something that was really positive for me, because before I went on the semester, I shaved my head, and the scariest part was having someone I knew see me, and it's just because, I don't know, beauty standard. But to be in Africa and to be away from that, and just to be away from that your beauty standard was so different, and it just indulged me into myself and my self-worth. So it was really beautiful and positive for me.
Yeah, and if I can add on to that, I definitely feel like kind of, social media can be a good place. It can also be a fairly negative place. And I remember like before semester, like I was on social media quite a lot. And there's definitely like some like images or just like stories that may read or see that can like definitely like take a tank on your like, self-esteem. So definitely kind of having a break from that during semester was really refreshing. Again, like, you're not gonna be putting on makeup when you're like trekking up whatever. So it's like you really got to just like, kind of just grow and like and kind of like grow to appreciate yourself and like, your strength more than kind of like this superficial beauty that like social media tries to present. Also kind of on like a more academic note, it made me feel like could be more focused like on my schoolwork. there was definitely like less distraction. And when I was like kind of with my like host family, or in um or like when we were just like traveling around and like meeting people, I definitely felt like more present in these situations. And I really like, I feel like if I did have technology, I wouldn't have like kind of gotten so much out of these experiences that I have. And then I saw someone's comment questioning, I think Emma, and she asked like about AP classes. I wanted to take AP calculus during my semester, but they didn't offer that like math class. So I had to coordinate with the school, of course, but like we eventually came to this thing where I could bring like a Kindle, in which I could like download like books and like kind of self-study on my own. And then they also like help you like block out like timing for which you can like kind of like study, and like you can have like a teacher that will like kind of like advise you, or like not really advise you, but they'll like be there and make sure that you're kind of like getting your AP classwork done. And like for as for like final exams, a lot of them are like project oriented, project based, which I thought was like really fun, because like I mean some of them were papers, but like one thing that I don't really like is like actual like testing, because I feel like you can't really measure how much on like testing. I mean, it's just a lot of memorization, but here it's kind of like you kind of learn skills or like lessons, and you kind of could channel them in like a creative way, like into projects. Like I made like an agroecology cow poster, and like that was like really cool. So yeah, so I hope that answers your question.
Awesome. We have another one about teachers and kind of the educational aspect. Is it how did your teachers do? And do you feel like you came back with an education, knowing that classes were different? So I actually reached out to a couple of our former parents, our alumni parents in the audience. And so I'm going to turn this over to Nancy. Oh, you're on mute, Nancy.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nancy, and my daughter was on TTS 20 in Africa. What I can say about the teachers, I couldn't even tell you which ones were what I might have traditionally called true teachers, in the classroom. But the teachers that my daughter had, she learned so much from. She still, as she's just finished grad school at NYU, speaks so highly of what she learned from them: the critical thinking, the ability to write well and write often, as she would say, because there's a lot of reading and writing in what she did as a social work major. And I would also say, because I'm an engineer and math is highly important to me, my daughter hated math. She was struggling with math. She had a teacher that spent a lot of time with her, and I think it was 2 other students, really working on their math skills to get through some of the curriculum. So I now look back, I was concerned about that, but I look back and shouldn't have been, because in reality, what she learned more of and better of, and a better quality than what she was getting in some of her classrooms. So I'm hoping that answers some of the questions. I would also say that the traveling school has worked at becoming accredited. We can't become accredited like a regular high school, but we are accredited within the realm of where we can be accredited, which I think is also important. And that was something that my husband, was working some stuff in education at the time, was very, very important to him, that there be some type of accreditation there. So I'll turn it back over to you, Anj.
Yeah, thanks. And that's a good point to bring up, Nancy, that within the past year and a half or so, we do have a new accreditation that's with private schools across the U.S. So it makes it easier for all types of schools to understand that we are doing work. There are exams and and essays and everything. So the girls should come home with a grade, and that's what a big part of my job is, working with those schools to help them understand that this is not a vacation, this is actually some work. So I've also asked if Patrice and Wendy might join in about the teachers too. So I see Patrice on the screen there.
Hi, everyone. I'm Patrice. My daughter is Leah. She's on the call as well. And she did semester 34. And so from an educational standpoint, before Leah went on to semester, she was homeschooling and had left traditional school, I think, right second semester of 10th grade. And then first semester of her junior year, she went to TTS. We always knew that we wanted a bigger, broader education for Leah as a family. And then Leah began to want that for herself. And so then she went on semester. And we knew the curriculum and the education was going to be on par and exactly what we wanted for her, but I didn't realize how much she would learn at TTS, and the ways in which she would learn, and the wealth of information that she would learn, and even how to learn. Right. So it wasn't just what she was learning, but she also learned how to learn, or how to study, or how to apply the things that she read or the things she experienced or saw. And now she's able to bring that back to her education now, and finishing out her senior year and going on to college. So she's just a different type of learner now. And, sadly, we are in one of the worst school districts in the country. And so the education she would have been able to get here in the Detroit public school systems was just subpar to what she was able to achieve. So literally one semester, 3.5 months at TTS, taught her and educated her in ways that her entire high school career would not been able to match. And so it really puts her ahead of, a lot of the other students that she, is with now. And it really prepares her for college. So for me, as a master level student myself, and working with students and people in the educational field, and coming from a family of educators, I was able to recognize very quickly that her TTS schoolwork was college level. A lot of it is college level learning. Lots of really a structured, like a first semester at college, or even advanced level college courses that I myself was able to take, and that Leah and the other students and the other girls will one day be able to take. And so it really prepares them. So what I found is she came home with an education she couldn't have gotten anywhere else, and an education that really strengthened on some of the foundations she had, but created new foundations, particularly in how she learns, how she absorbs information, and this idea of independent study. So please, if you're thinking of doing it, do it. Leah spoke a little bit about fundraising and getting the financials together. And when we first thought about going to TTS, it was kind of this big dream, and we couldn't imagine how we were going to pull it off, but we knew we had to, because we were just that sold on the experience and wanting more for Leah. And we were able to do it. And if we could do it, you can do it. So do it.
Awesome. Thank you.
And Anj, I would agree what Nancy and Patrice have said, but I would also add that, I don't know if it was mentioned before, but the girls work in small groups. They aren't all 15, or in TTS 31 is 18 girls all together. They have these smaller groups depending on the class. And the teachers, because they spend time with these girls, not just in the classroom, but trekking and in hostels, and they're in close quarters with these girls all the time. They really get to learn about these girls and know these girls, and how to teach each one of them almost individually. They get this real personal connection with the teachers and individualized help. And I can't say enough about the teachers and the strength of their instruction and the rigor, but just this individualized, and you would never get in a traditional classroom where you've got distractions with other students, and with classrooms that are more than 20 or 25 students. This is small groups, and and the teachers, and they want to know about these girls, and they get to know them really on a personal level. So I really think that really made a big difference in the learning. So.
Great. Thank you, ladies, for letting me put you on the spot. And I'm going to pass it back over to Maddie.
Awesome. Yeah, well, I would confidently say that that parent testimonial piece at the end is a great way to end this evening with you all and celebrate the stories and reflections that our lovely panelists have offered in addition to those spontaneous guest responses. So thank you all so much for volunteering your time tonight to be with us and helping inspire hopefully the next generation of TTSers out there. And really exciting also to see just general community support across this group. So I'm going to quickly share my screen one last time just to allow folks who are excited about applying to see some last details about our admissions process. Our applications are due on February 15th, and that includes scholarship applications. So ensure that once you submit the short answer piece, you take note of the list that comes up there once you submit it. And there are a few other items that we are excited to receive from you promptly. All application specific questions, so things like those credit transfer forms or how to coordinate your AP or IB curriculums with us, can be directed to info@travelingschool.com, and our admissions manager, Caitlin Bear, will be happy to answer those emails. Once we've received your application, we'll follow up with you and get a student interview scheduled. And then also this year, we're excited to do a group parent webinar. So imagine this kind of structure, but with all parents of applicants and our admissions team fielding those questions so that you can feel really empowered and informed going through the fundraising processes and also officially committing to a semester with us. So with all of that nitty gritty out of the way, I do just again want to say thank you all so much for joining us this evening. I'm really excited as, again, one of Leah's teachers and also just seeing a lot of familiar faces in this group right now to hear these stories, and it keeps me excited about this school in a way that I think right now, especially without programs going on, is really helpful for us to be reminded of the greater mission and to be able to touch that work. So for all you who are excited about a semester with us next year, please, please, please know that we are here to answer your questions. That is all we are dedicated to right now, is making next year amazing. So reach out. And with that, I'll pass it over to Anj real quick for some final words before we say our goodbyes.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Amazing alumni, and this is only just a small handful of the over 400 gals who have gone through our program, and I know they would be excited to chat with you, and we have many parents who are willing to talk about the experience too from that point of view. So we definitely have resources. We know it's a big decision to even just start the application process. So thank you for tuning in and spending an hour and a half with us on another Zoom call. I know all of us are maybe our eyes are a little tired from these Zoom conversations, but it means a lot to have you here with us. And there are 7 of us in the office, happy to chat and share our experience and our knowledge and help you along this journey. So thank you all for joining. Thank you, panelist ladies, for your incredible stories. I had goosebumps for about the last hour and a half, and it just makes me love this school and this job, and all the amazing gals enter it even more. So thank you all so much.
With that, maybe say goodbye. Keep in touch, and we're excited to work with you on this process. Panelists, you're the best.
Thank you so much.